Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about why shorts can't recover, how the squeeze is near the biggest crash, and many more in this video. Firstly, we're taking a look at this. The DTC just amended their recovery and wind down plan for the second time this year, less than a month from previous filing, where you can see here plans for recovery and orderly wind down of a covered clearing agency such as DTC. Now, we've covered this previously, and for the brief rundown, it's essentially talking about they are worried about certain positions that cannot be covered with the collaterals that's in the DTC, that cannot be covered by the institutions themselves, and they're trying to find a way where they can close these positions down without obviously having massive negative effects on the market. Now, when they already came up with this in the first time, we talked about how that's already a warning sign, because they wouldn't need to do rules like this, they won't need to do things like this if we are seeing everything is going well. But the very fact that we did, we know that something was up. Now, after they obviously amended it, after they changed it for their own liking, remember, this is so that they can obviously make sure that it's benefiting them. We are seeing them change it again for the second time. And so this is really a big indication of just how worrying it is right now for the market. You can see in the past few days in our videos, we've shown many different indications, shown many different news, which are showing that shorts are losing money, that not only shorts, but institutions as a whole have lost a lot of money because of this volatility. They haven't been able to make money despite wherever the market is going down or up, and we're seeing many firms being margin called, on the verge of margin calls, and some that are heading towards a margin call. And so this is what we are looking at right now, and this is why we're seeing all these firms start to panic. You can see after 4 years held, seems half it is near 6 digits for me. They might buy back my shares to whatever price. Now, when we look at something that's always been constant, and some of you may be familiar with this image, it's obviously the OBV of AMC. It's showing how the investors of AMC have always been in AMC. It's showing how the shares that we bought at the very beginning are still here with us. It's to show that no one has sold their AMC shares. And so what's constant for AMC is that the synthetics still exist, that the retails, that the apes are still in. Now, what's not constant is obviously we're talking about these constant rule change. I guess that's the thing you can see is constant, is the fact that they are always changing rules to help, these institutions from margin calls, to try and stop them from getting margin called, to try and stop them from losing billions of dollars. But clearly it isn't working right now, because what we've seen in the past was that maybe they implement a new rule every 3, 4, 5, 6 months, but now we're seeing them trying to implement a rule every single month because they are afraid of what's going on. You can also understand that AMC have their earnings very, very soon. AMC will report its result for the first quarter ending March 31st, 2025, after the market closes on Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. The box office result will make for a great earnings call. Now, I've already talked about the importance of looking out for AMC earnings. One of the biggest things, especially right now, is as we're seeing these massive tech firms and firms in general go down in value, we're seeing the collateral values dropping. It's very important that AMC not only goes up, but at the very minimum, obviously stay at the value that they are at. Now, we know AMC should already be at a higher value than where it is. That's something that's extremely obvious, but we know that we are not able to because of the suppression. But what's allowed AMC to obviously stay away from bankruptcy, to stay away from actually people selling the shares, is because AMC has shown great fundamentals. And so it's very important for AMC to still have good fundamentals going into the future. And it's why things like this is important. And as we talked about the changes, the investments that they've made, we are obviously knowing that AMC will very likely do very, very well. Furthermore, you can see AMC is down 10% last 2 days because we are doing better than the last 7 years. Makes sense. FU hedges, SEC and everyone else complicit to this unfair manipulated market. I will never leave. So this is obviously talked about the rules that are being implemented and many other things. Like we've said, we've always seen these new rules being implemented, which is helping out the institutions. But no matter how many rules they implement, it seems like the hedge funds always have a way to mess it up. But you can also understand why we said that the price is being manipulated, because we are doing better than ever, yet our price is still going down, but no one is selling. So how is that possible? And we obviously know the answer to that. But just like this particular ape, the Norwegian ape, has said he will never leave, this is pretty much the consensus for almost everyone else in the community as well. You can also see Elmo, I'm not going to pass up these bottom AMC prices. Third purchase this week, and I plan to do similar purchases weekly until the corrupt Wall Street entities behind the nefarious manipulation and suppression of AMC stock, to include others, have completely cleared all their shorts and or made to, or face criminal related consequences for the potential major market fraud and RICO, never leaving. So you can see I've already shown you two examples. Now there is hundreds and thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands out there who think the same thing. Obviously we don't have the time to show hundreds of thousands of people doing this, but you can understand. And if you are in a community, feel free to ask the people around you, what they think about these prices, or do they think it's discounted prices? Are they buying? Are they selling? Because this is what the community has always been like. Now, this isn't me telling you to be buying more AMC shares. As always, none of this is ever financial advice, so do take it as a grain of salt. Make sure to do your own due diligence and research. But it's to show you that the OBV data that we have seen has been true and very likely also been manipulated, because the OBV should be even higher. And it's also to show just how strong the community is. Remember, we are hundreds of thousands of people all united as one with one goal in mind. That's why we understand that the squeeze price, the floor price, will be extremely high. That's why we understand, despite all these FUD, despite all these manipulation methods that these hedge funds have tried to put on us, no one is selling, or at least 99% of the community isn't selling. And that's why we've always been able to stay afloat. That's why we've always been able to not being pushed to the very corner, to not give up to these shorts, because of the community strength like this. You can also see liquidity fairy reverse repo. They facilitated the huge liquidity crisis and pure greed from these hedge funds. So much cheap money injected into the system, and add huge amounts of leverage, you create a ticking time bomb. Now, this is talking about the reverse repo. Now, we talked about when the GME thing first happened, we obviously saw it go to 2 trillion, just like you can see when they spiked up. This was because they needed to inject money to make sure that these firms didn't get bankrupted because of the AMC shorts. However, what they didn't account for is that people was going to stay into this. Remember the fact, and this is something that I've brought up in the past, they needed 2 trillion to make sure that shorts were able to suppress AMC, that shorts weren't going to be margin called by AMC. But one thing they didn't realize is that because we still are in this, when this problem becomes a massive problem again, like 2021, they're going to need more than 2 trillion, because these 2 trillion, a large amount of it was being used to make synthetics of AMC. And that's why it's now an even bigger problem than before. And so this is why I've said, even if they were to inject 2 trillion this time, it wouldn't be useful like it was before, because they've already used 2 trillion. They need more to do this. You can also understand the financial crisis of 2025, better to be ready. And no one should be surprised. Ideally, financial companies should have ample resources to absorb losses and prevent contagion. They don't. Now, this is to obviously look at US Treasury. Hedge funds are so leveraged that spikes in volatility can quickly send them to the exit. Now, this is the article that we are looking at. But everything that we are going to be talked about in this article, we have covered in the past already. Whether you're looking at the bonds market, the commercial real estate, the general equities market with all these trillions of collaterals, they are all disappearing. We're seeing how rates have been a problem for them. We're seeing how the tariffs have been a problem for them. And ultimately, what should be the easiest giveaway is understanding that even when you're in the market, a hedge fund's unable to make money despite the price going down or up, you should understand that they are in a very bad position right now. And so this is why they are worried. This is why we talked about how hedge funds can't survive anymore. And it's going on with the liquidity that we talked about, because the problem this time will be even bigger. So not only do they have the collaterals to suppress it anymore, they also need more than ever in order to actually suppress AMC. You can see UBS started hedging the legacy GameStop swaps they inherited from Credit Suisse in Q4 2024. They'll likely have to continue doing so or risk imploding. And so this is what they have to do to make sure that the AMC squeeze and the GME squeeze doesn't happen. But what they can't do is fail to actually get the margin, is fail to actually do this, because we're seeing the financial crisis of 2025, because we're seeing the zero liquidity. So you can understand why the squeeze is near. And you guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.